What's up, everybody? Tom Pelissero here with Phil Mackey at Yankee Stadium shortly after the Twins season comes to a close with a 6-1 loss to the Yankees. Phil, I have to imagine that the clubhouse, and you were in there from the start, had to have been subdued after this one.
Yeah, it was. We walked in and everybody was just sort of sitting at their lockers in stunned fashion, I guess you could say. And then a few guys hung around to talk to the media while the other ones went back to shower and eat. And I think at this point, you're just at a complete loss of words if you're a Twins player or even if you're a media member. We've seen the same thing happen. Now, the Twins have lost 12 straight postseason games. That's the second longest drought in postseason history next to the Red Sox between 1986 and 1995. So to lose 12 straight games, and to put that into perspective, the Twins' longest regular season losing streak in the last 10 years, or at least the last 8 years under Ron Gardenhire, is 6. And so I know you're playing the Yankees and you're playing the Oakland A's in 2006, but you should never lose 12 in a row, and you should never look this bad against one team in Major League Baseball.
And I never want to question, I certainly don't question the effort of the team. I don't think that they were lacking in that department, but I get just the sense, and you don't usually see panic or guys being scared in baseball, but there were times tonight where guys just looked jumpy or looked down, like Matt Guerrero throwing over to first base and nearly missing, Joe Mauer being completely wide on a throw. They were just making some little errors where it just seemed like when it came down to it and when the Yankees got out to a lead, some guys started gripping it a little tight. Did you get that sense?
And the Twins keep pointing to the fact that they're in these games, they're close games, and tonight wasn't really.
It's baseball,
but
you're not going to lose by 20.
See, tonight wasn't really close. It was 6-1. But like you said, you're going to lose 4-2. You're going to lose 3-1. All baseball games are close. Teams average 4.5 runs a game, 5 runs a game. And so to point to the fact that you're close all the time, that's irrelevant in my mind. I mean, you're going to have games decided by a 2-run homer in the 6th inning by Mark Teixeira, like in Game 1. That's how baseball works. So you can't really play we play these guys close every game card, because the Reds play the Phillies close. The Pirates sometimes play the Phillies close. Everybody plays close.
And particularly in the postseason, the gap is narrow. Teams are a little closer. I think this game, Phil, Game 3, they come to the Bronx, and it exposed a little bit of what they've been lacking this year. Number one being they don't really have a third starter. You put Brian Dunsing out here. He doesn't induce a single swinging strike in 58 pitches.
Which is miraculous. That's unbelievable.
Last 3 1/3 innings. He talks about he's just trying to stay relaxed and pitch to contact. Well, that's fine when you're playing the teams in a regular season, but I would put that near the top of the list. You know, you're not going to get a bunch of guys who throw 98, but you can get some guys who can throw the ball past people, can't you?
And I'll tell you what, after the game, Dunsing said, pitching to contact's not always a bad thing, but you don't want bad contact. And the ball that Marcus Thames hit out to opposite field, he classified that as bad contact. Well, I would even take that a step further and say when you're pitching in a ballpark like Yankee Stadium, a small hitter-friendly ballpark, and your contact is by guys like Thames, home run hitter, Alex Rodriguez, Mark Teixeira. I mean, when these guys make contact, a lot of times it's a double, it's a home run. So it's just, like you said, the Twins don't have a solidified number 3, number 4, number 5 starter. The whole bottom of the rotation's been in flux, and credit to manager Ron Gardenhire and Rick Anderson for patchworking the whole season basically with only 2 consistent starters. But that's something that at some point you're going to have to find a solidified playoff rotation 1 through 3. And even the top 2 guys, Pavano and Liriano, just flat out didn't get it done in the middle innings.
Well, and here's another thing. This is just occurring to me as I'm talking here. But think back to the rotation at the beginning of the season. Brian Dunsing's not in it. Carl Pavano's the 3 or the 4. Was he the 4 to start the season?
Well, you could rank. It was shuffled around, but Baker was in the mix as the number 1. Probably.
Right.
Pavano
Liriano was the
3.
5. Pavano was down 3rd or 4th at least to start the season. So you're talking about all these guys, Slowey and Blackburn and Baker, who in the end didn't even factor. So I would imagine that looking at that staff, taking a good hard look at that, has to be one of many things that they're going to be looking at to try to get over this hump, but just the general good enough to win the AL Central, not good enough to win in October.
Yeah, and I don't think you can sit here and say that the Twins aren't ready to compete with the Yankees. And I don't know if there's one single reason why they can't beat the Yankees, or if it's just 50 reasons put together at this point. But they're good enough to win 95 games. It's probably the best offense Ron Gardenhire's had. Liriano is one of the better pitchers in the American League, and I think he'll only progress from here. They have to decide if they want to re-sign Pavano, but it's funny because the team is a lot closer than the sweep indicates. But everyone in that clubhouse is just completely baffled as to why they can't beat the Yankees. It's not only just beating the Yankees in a series, it's beating them in a game. They can't beat the Yankees in a game right now in the postseason.
Which, as a sabermetrician yourself, has to boggle your mind when you compare the statistics and how close they are in so many different categories. Just the odds of losing this many consecutive games and losing this many postseason games and all these other things that are adding up, and just the record against the Yankees under Ron Gardner in general. It doesn't make logical sense.
No, and a lot of people are going to point to the last 2 weeks of the regular season and say, well, they lost 8 of 10 games. They didn't have any momentum. People throw the word momentum around. Momentum in baseball is impossible to predict or quantify. The Yankees lost 8 of 11 down the stretch,
right,
and they also finished 9-16 in their last 25 games.
And they were in a little bit of the same position where they had some guys who were nicked up. Joe Girardi went down the list today where he had Nick Swisher who couldn't play for a week. Andy Pettitte couldn't go out there and pitch yet. They were playing some of their veterans. It's not as though these teams start trying down the stretch. There's just other priorities.
Right.
I think what we saw tonight, and really through this whole series, but especially tonight, was the Yankees are a better baseball team at this point.
They are, but they're not better to where they should be winning 9 in a row against the Twins.
Right.
There's no such thing in baseball. In the playoffs, like you said earlier, the gap is a lot thinner between teams. The talent gap, and just if you're looking at the Yankees compared to maybe the worst playoff team, and you could argue that maybe that's the Twins, they're still only a 60% favorite to win any individual game at best, and so that's why this is so mind-boggling.
I had this thought in the 9th inning tonight that I kind of feel as though we just started the season, that we were just writing preview stories, and now here we are, 3 games in, we're at Yankee Stadium, and it's over. You've done a fantastic job on the Twins coverage all year. I'll thank you on video for that, and of course your coverage will be continuing throughout the off-season, where they've got a lot of tough decisions coming up too.
Well, and here's the weird part about baseball. You play for 6 months, and if you include spring training, 7.5 months, and you play 162 games, and all of a sudden 3 games in the playoffs, and it's all over. That's it. 5-game series, you get swept, and you're done. And so if you're in that clubhouse right now and you're staring at the wall thinking, wow, what am I going to do tomorrow? It's weird.
And in a shade over 4 months, you'll be down in Fort Myers continuing it, and I'll be heading across the river to cover the Vikings and Jets on Monday night. But plenty of Twins coverage coming throughout this week as we turn the page toward the offseason, and of course the Vikings coverage coming. Big weekend in New York so far. Not much on Minnesota's side. He's Phil, I'm Tom. We'll see you.